Have you ever thought about how tightly we hold on to life? We chase it, plan it, and grip it with everything we have, believing that control equals progress. But here's the paradox no one tells you. The tighter you clench your fist, the less you can hold. A closed hand is strong, yes, but it's also full. It can't receive anything new. Now imagine that same hand, open, relaxed, steady, and ready. That shift from force to flow is where something begins to change. We stop pushing. We stop micromanaging every outcome. And in that stillness, life begins to move again, not with chaos, but clarity, not with resistance, but with alignment. This episode is about that quiet, counterintuitive power that doesn't come from dominating the moment, but from trusting it. Surrender in the Stoic sense doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to what is real, to what is already happening, and to the deeper rhythm that's always been there beneath the noise. If this speaks to something inside you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. There's a lot more where this came from. Sometimes more effort will solve everything. Life will finally unlock. What if we try harder, push longer, and plan more intelligently? But have you noticed that the harder we chase, the more things seem to slip away? It's almost like life waits for us to stop trying so hard before it opens the door. Not because effort is wrong, but because effort without presence becomes resistance in disguise. There's a moment many of us face. Maybe it's in our careers where we've done everything right. Networking, producing, grinding daily, yet the results never quite come. Or in our relationships where we give everything we have, nothing seems to change. Or in those quiet dreams that no one sees but us. And still, no matter how much we do, the doors stay shut. So we double down. We grip tighter. We tell ourselves that more control will bring more clarity. But what if the control itself is what's keeping us stuck? What if the very energy we believe is helping us, our force, our willpower, is precisely what's pushing the outcome away? That's not a weakness, that's a paradox. And the Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." Sometimes surrender isn't about giving up. It's about stepping back just far enough to allow life to breathe again. Because there's a difference between pursuing something and strangling it. And often when we finally let go, not out of apathy, but because we're exhausted and tried everything, we create space. Not a space of absence, but a space of openness. That's when things begin to move. Not because we forced them, but because we finally got out of their way. Take Sarah, for example. A real artist. She spent years trying to make it, posting constantly, promoting herself, being consistently productive and always online. But nothing felt alive anymore. Her art became tight and transactional. Her life felt heavy, and one day she stopped. Not because she gave up, but because something inside her asked, "What if I create again?" Not for success, but joy. So she did. No strategy, no agenda, just expression. And that's when the shift happened. A gallery owner discovered her raw, honest, unfiltered work and invited her to do a solo show. The opportunity she had been chasing for years arrived when she stopped chasing. That's the power of surrender. Not as a defeat, but as an alignment. Like a river finding its path. Not through force, but by honoring the curves of the earth. And just like that river, maybe we're meant to move not by controlling the flow, but by joining it. So let me ask you, where in your life are you still clenching your fist? What dream are you squeezing so tightly that it's lost the ability to breathe? And what might happen, not if you gave up, but if you softened your grip? Because maybe, just maybe, what you've been trying so hard to reach has been trying to get you too. And maybe that's the turning point. Not the wanting traps us. It's the clinging. It's measuring our worth against timelines that were never ours. We start thinking, if it hasn't happened by now, maybe it never will. If this path doesn't open, perhaps I was wrong. But the Stoics remind us, it's not about whether the path is smooth. It's about whether the step forward is true. See, surrender doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what matters, without the noise. It's the quiet alignment between action and acceptance. You move, but not from fear. You show up, but not from ego. You speak not to control the outcome, but because truth wants a voice. It's easy to confuse effort with virtue, to think that exhaustion equals worth. But what if the strongest thing you can do is pause? What if letting go isn't a sign of weakness, but the beginning of absolute power? Think of the farmer. He plants the seed and tends the soil, but does not shout at the sky. He doesn't pull at the roots every day, demanding growth. He trusts. And in that trust, something more profound is happening. Not on his timeline, but in life's rhythm. Where are you pushing so hard that you've forgotten how to breathe? Where are you demanding answers when silence might be the greater teacher? In the Stoic sense, surrender is not apathy, it's wisdom in motion, knowing that the outcomes are not always yours to command, but your effort, intention, and presence, that's always in your hands. So today, what would it look like to act, not from pressure, but from peace? To work, not to prove your worth, but to honor it. To want sincerely, but hold lightly. Because the irony is, when we stop clutching so tightly to how it must be, life finally shows us how it can be. And sometimes what's waiting for us on the other side of surrender is not less than we imagined. It's more. We just weren't still enough to see it. Resistance doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, not with panic, but with a quiet tug, pulling us away from what we were meant to do. And the tricky part, it often wears the mask of reason. It tells you to wait until the timing is better, until you're more ready, until you're sure no one will laugh, criticize, or turn away. But here's what the Stoics knew. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward with it in your pocket. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it's endurable, then endure it. If it's not, then stop complaining." That includes the voice in your head telling you you're not enough. That consists of the doubt disguised as strategy. Sometimes the resistance isn't in your schedule, it's in your story, the one you've been telling yourself about what you're capable of and what you're not. But stories can be edited, beliefs can be rewritten. You don't need a new life, you need a new lens. Think about Lily, a woman who dreamed of opening her design studio. She had the skill, the network, and even a bit of funding, but every time she got close, she'd sabotage it. She'd take freelance gigs that drained her. She'd redesign her website endlessly, chasing perfection. But the real problem? She feared being seen, because being seen meant being judged. It wasn't until she asked herself, what if the fear isn't a stop sign but a signal? That things began to shift. You see, resistance shows up strongest where your calling lives. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're about to do something that matters. So the next time you feel that tightness, that urge to delay or distract, pause. Not to run, but to listen. What if the resistance isn't here to stop you? What if it's here to ask, are you willing to grow? That's the Stoic practice. Not to eliminate fear, but to understand it. To see the internal battle and still choose the braver side. Because your resistance is not your enemy, it's your initiation. Do you ever notice how resistance doesn't just appear in your thoughts, but in your body? The tight chest, the racing pulse, the urge to open your phone and scroll for no reason. That's not laziness. That's your nervous system trying to protect you from visibility, failure, and even the possibility of pain. But the Stoics understood that to be fully alive means facing discomfort without escaping it. You don't need to destroy fear. You need to stay, breathe, let the wave rise, and remain standing when it falls. Because here's the truth, most of us aren't afraid of failing. We're so scared of what it would mean about us if we failed. And that meaning, that's a story, and stories can be rewritten. So instead of fighting resistance, sit with it. Ask, what part of me is trying to stay safe right now? Then thank it and lead anyway. Break the illusion that says you must feel confident to take action. Confidence is a result, not a requirement. Even the ancient Stoics woke up with dread. Seneca confessed, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And he was right, because most fears aren't facts. They're forecasts, and usually wrong ones. You don't have to leap today, just lean. Lean toward the thing that makes your heart beat a little faster. The email you're afraid to send. The conversation you've been avoiding. The decision you keep postponing, not because you're fearless, but because you're aligned. Choosing the path of courage again and again rewires who you believe you are. And one day, without even noticing, the thing that once terrified you becomes part of your story. Not the part that broke you, the part that built you. Maybe the answers don't come when we demand them. Perhaps they arrive when we become quiet enough to hear. In Stoic thought, certainty was never promised, only clarity in how we respond. And sometimes clarity begins not with a declaration, but with a pause, with stillness, with a willingness to say, "I don't know, but I'm listening," trusting the process isn't passive. It's the most courageous thing you can do in a world that rewards overthinking and punishes stillness. Because surrender isn't giving up, it's giving in to something wiser than your plans. Think about it. How many things didn't go how you wanted, but turned out better than you imagined? That missed job, that failed relationship, that unexpected move. At the time, they felt like detours, but they were direction. Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." The question isn't whether life will move. It's whether you'll move with it or fight every step along the way. Maya didn't find a purpose in chasing it. She found it by following what felt real, even when small, even when it made no sense on paper. And that's what alignment feels like. Quiet, grounded, often unglamorous, but it's deeply true. So if you're in a season of not knowing, don't rush to fix it. Don't force a breakthrough. Just keep showing up with open eyes, an open mind, and an open heart. Because clarity doesn't scream, it whispers. And if you stay long enough, it will speak. Something strange happens when you stop gripping it so tightly. Life starts to breathe again. The Stoics believed that virtue, living in harmony with reason and nature, was the highest good. But harmony doesn't come from force. It comes from rhythm, from listening, from aligning your choices with what is, not just what you wish it were. And sometimes life's most incredible offerings come disguised as silence. A missed opportunity, it's a slow season, an unanswered email. But what if that delay isn't punishment, it's preparation? Take Leo, for example. He applied to 15 jobs. I got rejected from 14. The 15th, it wasn't even on his radar. A friend sent it last minute. No flashy title, no perfect salary, but it changed his life. Not because it matched his plan, but because it matched his growth. That's the quiet genius of alignment. It doesn't always look impressive from the outside, but inside, you're at peace. Because now you're no longer running to prove. You're moving to express. You're no longer chasing to escape something. You're showing up because you've become someone. And that shift, that subtle, invisible pivot, it changes everything. Not just what you attract, but how you receive it. You stop grabbing. You start holding. Gently. Gratefully. So if you're in the middle of uncertainty, if you feel like things aren't going fast enough, big enough, clear enough, pause. Not to quit, but to breathe. Remember that growth doesn't always make noise. And sometimes the most significant breakthroughs happen when you stop trying to break through, because there is a kind of courage that doesn't look like action, but still takes everything you've got. The courage to pause, to wait, to watch the storm without needing to control it. The Stoics didn't chase after stillness. They cultivated it, moment by moment, decision by decision. They understood, sometimes the wisest thing you can do is nothing. That's not a weakness. That's presence. That's learning the difference between reacting and responding, between moving from fear and moving from purpose. And that difference, it's not measured in minutes. It's measured in meaning. Think about how often we rush to post, to reply, to fix, to prove. But when you slow down and create space between stimulus and response, you reclaim something most people never realize they've lost: yourself. Because in that space, you choose, not based on impulse, not based on pressure, but based on who you want to be. And who do you want to be? Someone who lives from panic or from presence? Someone who is always fixing or finally listening? Someone who clutches at life or flows with it? You don't have to force the future into your hands, because the truth is that the future listens to alignment more than it listens to effort. And the peace you're searching for, it's not at the top of the next mountain. It's in the step you take, without fear, without force, with faith. Because stillness isn't the absence of effort, it's the presence of intention. When you stop trying to outrun your discomfort, you begin to hear what it's been trying to teach you all along. That anxiety, it may be asking for rest, not resolution. That resistance, it might be signaling misalignment, not failure. And that silence you fear so much could be the sound of something finally settling into place. The Stoics didn't ignore their emotions. They observed them. They didn't push life into submission. They partnered with it. Epictetus wrote, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish. Seek for everything to happen as it does." That's not passivity, that's mastery. Because when you meet the moment as it is, not as you wish it were, you unlock the clarity to respond wisely. You become less tangled in outcomes and more rooted in your role. You stop trying to control the wind and learn how to adjust your sails. And from that place, things begin to shift. Conversations soften, tension dissolves, answers surface, not because you forced them, but because you made space for them to arrive. So if you're in a season of waiting, wondering, and letting go, remember, the most powerful transformations rarely come wrapped in noise. They come in quiet choices, repeated gently over time. They come when you stop fighting the current and trust the direction. Let go of the illusion that your peace must be postponed until everything is perfect. It never will be. The Stoics knew this, so they taught us to anchor peace not in the future, but in the present. Because the more we tie our worth to outcomes, the more fragile we become. Suppose your joy depends on the world moving according to plan. In that case, every delay becomes a crisis, and every detour becomes a personal failure. But life isn't built on our plans. It unfolds despite them. Seneca once said, "Expecting is the greatest impediment to living. In anticipation of tomorrow, it loses today. And how many today have we already traded away, waiting for a version of life that may never come?" You can still set goals. You can still strive. But let go of the script. Let go of the version of success that's suffocating your spirit. Because often it's not the dream that hurts, it's the demand. And once you release that grip, something softer enters. A quiet confidence, a deeper resilience, a peace that doesn't need proof. That's the gift of living aligned with the present, not because it's easy, but because it's real. So let this moment be enough. Not because you finished the race, but because you finally remembered You can breathe along the way. Stillness isn't the absence of action, it's the foundation of wise action. Choosing calm is a quiet rebellion in a world that glorifies hustle and urgency, but not passive, not disconnected. The Stoics didn't retreat from life, they stood at the center of it, unshaken. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his soul." And in that inner space, we don't escape reality, we return to it, fully, mindfully, with clarity. Because when we slow down, we don't fall behind. We see what others miss. We respond rather than react. We notice the patterns we've been repeating, the fears we've been feeding, the expectations we've been dragging like invisible weights. This is why the discipline of stillness isn't just meditation. It's a daily practice of choosing presence over pressure. It's pausing before sending that email, a breath before answering that phone call. Give yourself a moment of honesty before you say yes to another commitment. These moments are small, but they're powerful because they break the cycle of autopilot. And every time we choose presence, we're not just calming our nerves, we're rewiring how we live. Studies show that 10 minutes of focused breathing daily can reduce anxiety, lower cortisol, and improve sleep. But more than that, it strengthens your ability to observe, endure, and hold space for discomfort without collapsing into it. This is the core of Stoic strength, not in pushing harder, but staying rooted when the winds rise. So ask yourself not, "What should I do next?" but "What am I avoiding feeling?" Because often our urgency is just a mask for discomfort, and presence is the only way through. Let your stillness speak louder than your stress. Let your calm carry more weight than your words. That's how you walk through chaos with your peace intact. And that's not a weakness, that's mastery. Life isn't a machine to be fine-tuned. It's more like a river, and rivers don't ask for control, they ask for trust. This is the paradox the Stoics understood well. The more we try to dominate life, the more we disconnect from its wisdom. True power doesn't shout, it listens. It bends without breaking. It flows with clarity, not chaos. Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." That's not surrendering to defeat. That's cooperating with reality. It's about aligning with the moment instead of resisting it. Because what if strength isn't in how tight you hold on, but in how gently you let go? Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means loosening the grip on what was never entirely yours to control. The outcome, the timing, the reaction, what's left is presence. And from presence comes peace. You don't have to abandon planning or discipline, but ask yourself, are they rooted in fear or in faith? Fear builds walls. Faith builds rhythm. Rhythm is where you stop fighting the current and start swimming with it. The Stoics weren't blind to pain, uncertainty, or change. They refused to make these things enemies. Instead, they became students of discomfort, watching it, learning from it, moving through it with dignity, not denial. And here's the truth. Control might feel like safety, but it rarely delivers it. It builds tension. It demands perfection. It feeds the illusion that we'd finally arrive if we tried harder. But peace doesn't come. Peace is allowed. It begins the moment you release the story, and you must fix everything to be okay. So next time your mind races to solve, push, tighten its grip, pause, ask, what would trust look like right now? Maybe it's a breath. Perhaps it's a step back. Maybe it's saying, "I don't know yet," without shame. That's not a weakness. That's wisdom in motion. And maybe that's what surrender truly is. Not giving up, but giving space. The space to breathe, feel, and let life unfold without forcing every frame. When we stop clenching, life isn't just easier, it's clearer. Clarity doesn't always arrive with answers. Sometimes it comes with permission to pause, to not have it all figured out, to meet this moment without the weight of 1,000 expectations strapped to your back. This is what the Stoics practiced every day. Not control over the world, but command over their response. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." And freedom begins when we stop tying our peace to things we can't control. You don't need every piece in place to feel steady. You don't need perfect outcomes to feel worthy. What you need, what we all need, is presence, awareness, and the humility to say, "This is where I am, and that's okay." Because life will never stop changing. People will be disappointed, plans will shift, timelines will break. But you, your inner stance, you get to choose whether to meet change with fear or with flow. Letting go doesn't mean detaching from life. It means re-entering it fully, eyes open, breath deep, no longer chasing, resisting, but responding, moment by moment, breathe by breath. And yes, it takes courage to loosen your grip. But what if that courage is precisely what opens the door to something greater? Not in theory, in reality, in your actual life, in your following conversation, your next decision, your next quiet moment of "I'm here and I don't need to fix this to be at peace." Because in that pause, life responds. In that breath, something shifts. And in that stillness, something begins. Not from effort, but from alignment. And that's where real strength lives. And that's the quiet transformation we often overlook. Surrender isn't about stepping away from life. It's about stepping more fully into it, with less tension and more trust. Not because the path is easy, but because ease comes when the path is no longer a battleground. You start to notice the difference between effort and strain, between being present and being possessed by outcomes. The Stoics taught us that peace isn't found at the end of striving. It's found in how you show up while trying. So ask yourself, are you chasing or are you aligning? Because chasing often comes from lack, alignment from clarity. You're not here to hustle yourself into worthiness. You're already whole. Nothing you achieve will make you more you. It might reveal parts of you, refine you, but it won't complete you. That work was done the moment you showed up in this life. So instead of living like life is a finish line you haven't crossed yet, what if you lived like it's a conversation you're already in? What if your goals became invitations instead of ultimatums? That's the shift, the radical reframe. And no, it doesn't remove ambition. It releases the anxiety attached to it. So your ambition becomes clean, focused, energized by purpose, not pressure. And when you lead from that space, everything changes. You stop begging for doors to open. You become the one who walks in without needing to prove yourself. You stop forcing connections and start attracting the ones meant for you. You stop bracing for failure and start embracing learning. Because surrender in its deepest form is not weakness. It's the highest expression of trust. Trust in timing, trust in the moment. Trust yourself, not as someone who needs to dominate life, but as someone who knows how to dance with it. And when that shift happens, when you stop gripping and start grounding, life doesn't just look different. It feels different. Lighter. It's still challenging, yes, but no longer heavy with self-judgment. That's what freedom is. Not escape, but presence without pressure. So as this episode nears its end, take one breath, a real one, and ask gently, where am I gripping too tightly? Where can I soften? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do today is let go. And here's what the Stoics knew long before psychology gave it a name. You cannot force connection. You can only make space for it. The tighter you grip someone, the more likely they will slip through, because closeness doesn't come from control. It comes from presence. Actual presence, the kind that heals, not hovers, is born from letting go of who we think someone should be and meeting them where they are. It's not passive, It's powerful. It means having the courage to stop scripting other people's growth, to stop auditioning for affection. We need to stop rewriting reality in our heads and start relating to what's real in front of us, messy, human, imperfect. And when you do that, something changes. Not them, you. Your nervous system relaxes. The conversations deepen. The resentment fades. Not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer demand perfection. You're inviting truth. You're giving people the dignity of their process without fixing, rushing, or needing them to validate you. That's a kind of love few ever experience because it requires something most people never practice: emotional non-attachment. Not the cold kind, not apathy, but the kind that says, I care deeply, but I don't need to control the outcome. That's what Stoicism in relationships looks like. It's showing up fully, without trying to bend others to fit your fears. And when you love from that space, the love is cleaner, it breathes, it matures. So can you love someone and let them be free? Can you handle the discomfort of not being chosen, back in the way you hope, and remain rooted in your worth? Can you stay soft, even when the story doesn't go the way you wrote it? That's where surrender meets strength. Because emotional strength isn't how hard you hold on, it's how gently you release when it's time. The Stoics taught us that virtue isn't just what you do, it's how you show up, especially when you don't get what you want. And nowhere is that more tested than in love. So if you're in that space, holding on too tightly, trying to control what someone else feels, take a breath. Not to abandon them, but to return to yourself. You are not here to manage other people's choices. You are here to manage your clarity, your alignment, and your peace. Let that be enough today. And sometimes, the very act of no longer needing love to complete you is what allows a deeper kind of love to arrive, finally. But the real question is, how do we truly become present? When your mind keeps drifting to the past, when you're caught replaying what you should have done, when the anxiety about tomorrow steals the breath from today, we don't always run with our feet. We run with our thoughts. Endless planning, constant comparisons, rehearsing what was, predicting what might be. In doing that, we abandon the only place where life ever really happens. Right here, right now. Have you noticed? The moment you are truly present, even for a breath, you don't have to try to feel peace. You become peace. There's no need to control anything, no need to perfect anything, just the willingness to stop and step fully into this moment precisely as it is. Because in Stoicism, freedom doesn't come from changing what's outside. It begins with making peace with what is. No resistance, no pretending, no postponing. You don't have to say, I'll be okay when. You choose, I'll show up now. And in that choice, you reclaim the power you've been giving away to the future. You're no longer relying on circumstances to feel grounded. You begin to live from within yourself. From that space, you respond more clearly, you speak more honestly, you act more deliberately. And even if the present moment is hard, it's real. And what's real can be healed. What drains you isn't always the situation. It's the fight against the situation. Freedom isn't out there, it's in here. And every time you return to the now, you're not just touching stillness, you're returning to yourself. So ask yourself gently, where are you right now? Not your body, but your mind, your emotions, your energy. Are you here or lost in a future you can't control or a past you can't change? And if you're not here, it's okay. Come back to your breath, back to the weight in your chest, back to the ground beneath your feet, back to what is real. Because this moment, just as it is, isn't something to rush through, it's something to live. And when you live it fully, you realize that surrender isn't weakness, it's returning to yourself, to this breath, to now. So much of what we chase is already within reach. Peace, clarity, connection, meaning, but we miss it, not because it's hidden, but because we're moving too fast, gripping too tightly, trying too hard to shape life into something never meant to be. We forget that surrender isn't about giving up. It's about realigning, about meeting life where it is, not where we wish it were. It's about trusting that we don't have to carry everything alone. That control is not the key to freedom. Presence is. Forced outcomes might deliver results, but only surrender creates absolute alignment, the kind that doesn't just change what we experience, it changes who we are as we experience it. So maybe the real question isn't, what should I do next? Maybe it's, what am I being asked to let go of? What old belief is keeping you stuck? What unspoken expectation is stealing your peace? What pressure are you holding so tightly that it's pushing joy out of reach? And what would happen if, just for a moment, you let the grip soften? If you slowed down enough to let life meet you, right where you are? You don't need to force clarity. You need to allow space for it. You don't need to chase stillness. You need to stop running from it. And when you do, you stop treating life like a war zone to conquer and start remembering it's a place to come home to, again and again and again. That's the quiet power of surrender. Not to dominate, but to understand. Not to escape, but to return. Because the moment you're living right now, imperfect, ordinary, real, is the only place where peace has ever lived. And when you show up fully to it, you don't just survive, you begin to live genuinely. Surrender is not the end of action, it's the beginning of alignment. It's the quiet courage to stop forcing and start listening. Trusting what's meant for you won't require you to exhaust yourself chasing it. And in that stillness, you don't lose your power. You reclaim it from distraction, from tension, from fear. Because the deepest kind of strength doesn't roar. It breathes. It chooses presence over pressure, patience over panic, connection over control. This isn't about giving up. It's about showing up fully, honestly, moment by moment, not trying to bend life into shape, but learning to meet it as it is, with open hands and an open heart. So as you return to your day, take this with you. You don't have to outrun yourself to find peace. You have to stop resisting the moment you're in, the one you're breathing right now. Because this is where your life happens, not when everything's perfect, but when you're present enough to notice it's already enough. And maybe that's the real invitation, not to strive harder, but to surrender deeper, to stop asking, what more do I need? And start wondering, what could I receive if I just let go? So tell me, what's one thing you're finally ready to stop holding so tightly? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your reflection. And if this episode brought you clarity, could you not keep it to yourself? Tap like to help others find it. Hit subscribe to walk this journey together, and turn on the bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time.